Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. I'm Mackie Hall, and today we're going to be talking about animating with Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Animate. For those of you who don't know, Adobe Animate is a powerhouse application designed for building interactive animations for video, games, and the web. With it, you can bring animation and banner ads to life, create avatars, and create animated and interactive infographics. You can also publish to multiple platforms on just about any format. That includes everything from an animated GIF to a high-end video format. Combine this with Adobe Illustrator, and you've got easy access to be truly creative. For this 8-part beginner tutorial, we're going to learn how to create this simple web tutorial using Illustrator and Animate. Here are the steps. Part 1, let's get started. Building Illustrator art, file setup, and importing. Part 2, create a looping animated symbol. Part 3, using motion tweens for basic animation. Part 4, adding stop actions. Part 5, creating buttons and button-based actions. Part 6, advanced buttons, basic button hover animation and linking to outside URLs. Part 7, publishing options for your web ad. Part 8, importing into an adaptive web page. This is part 7, publishing options for your web ad. And a quick note, if you're coming in at one of the latter stages of the tutorial, be sure you start at step 1. That's always going to be the most helpful, and that'll get you on the path to creativity the fastest. For this piece, we're offering an Illustrator file down below or in your Canvas page to get started. Let's go. All right, congratulations. We have finished with all of the coding for our Animate piece. Next thing we need to do is go ahead and output it. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and give a look at what our final piece looks like. We'll do this by previewing in our web browser. We do that by hitting Control-Enter. And let's have a look. All right, there you go. You'll notice that our animation opens in our web page cleanly. We jump from panel 1 to panel 2 without stopping, and then we stop once our header and click here arrive. Next thing we'll do is we'll click on click here, and our second headline pops in. We have 2 links, visit CDC website and close. If we click on the CDC website, CDC link opens in a new window just like we specifically requested. If we go ahead and hit close, we go right back to the second panel. Looks good. All we need to do now is output it for use on a web page. Let's go ahead and see how we do that. Now that we've created and coded our animation, what are the published settings? Note that when we opened our animation in the browser, it showed our animation straight from the stage. It was scaled at 600 pixels tall by 900 pixels wide. That works fine, but what if we want to publish this animation? Note that when we visit web pages, oftentimes those pages will display differently if opened on a normal computer or on a tablet or on our phones. So how can we make our Animate animations responsive just like the web pages we oftentimes view? Here's how we do it. What we need to do is modify our published settings. The way we do that is we can go to File, Publish Settings, or we can press Control-Shift-F12. Once we selected that, our published setting windows open, and note we are on the default profile. That's all we need to do for this particular piece. Note that under our publish box, we've got 4 formats. We've got JavaScript HTML, we've got JPEG image, OAM package, and SVG image. Note that the JPEG image is a static image. We don't want that since we've got an animation. An OAM package is a platform for native applications. In this or almost any case, we're not going to be using OAM packages. And finally, we've got an SVG image, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. Again, that generally is static. While an SVG image is perfectly scalable, it's generally static, so we don't want that. Instead, what we want to look at is our JavaScript HTML publish settings. So let's go through the basic settings on that. Under output name, we can change the output name of our piece. In this case, let's go ahead and write Animate Final. And then right next to it, we can go ahead and select the file that we're going to publish to. In this case, I'll click on that, and I will seek out where I want to publish this. In this case, let's go ahead and publish it to a web page. So I'll go into my documents, select www.root, and click on Commerce Lane. That's my own web server right there. And I'll go ahead and create a folder in here. I'll just right click on the window, select New Folder, and write Animate Test. Go ahead and click on that. And then let's go ahead and save our file right in here. Let's go ahead and select that file right there. Note under the output name, there is the directory link to our file. Next thing we want to look at is, do we want to loop the timeline? We absolutely do, because we do include looping artwork in there. Think about our clouds. If there are hidden layers which we want to hide in there, we can select that. In this case, we're including all of our layers, so there's no need to include or hide hidden layers. But if you ever want to include hidden layers or hide hidden layers, all you need to do is check this button. And that means when it opens in the web browser, it will be centered on our respective piece. We can select center horizontally and vertically. We can select horizontally, we can select vertically, or both. Now that we've created our file name and set our loop timeline, the next thing we want to do is we want to select whether we want to center our stage. And our answer is yes. That way, no matter where our piece will appear, our animation will appear centered in the element that we have selected to put it in. Now note that the default centering says both. This will center it both horizontally and vertically in whatever element you select. In most instances, we want to center it horizontally. Vertically, we want it always to anchor on the top. So we'll select center horizontally. Next thing we want to do is we want to select Make Responsive. The reason we select Make Responsive is because we're always going to be outputting to a page or web page that is responsive. Think about the MO of most websites. They have to be readable not only on a full-scale computer or laptop, but they have to be equally as readable on a tablet or phone or any other device. When we select Make Responsive, generally speaking, we want to make sure that we're responsive by width. Our animation will scale vertically, so let's go ahead and select Make Responsive by width. If we made it responsive by height, what would often happen is part of our animation would fall off the page or fall out of the element selected. If our animation is going to be the only thing on a page, we can always select it to fill the visible area. In this case, we don't need that. Next thing we want to do is we can include a preloader. A preloader image appears while the animation is loading. This is a good idea in really complex animations. In most cases, it's not really needed, but if you want to include a preloader, all you need to do is select Include a Preloader. And if you've created one, you can go ahead and select it. All you need to do is click on the default button, select Browse, and then go and look for one. In this case, I've created an image called preload.gif. We'll click on that, and that will include the preload image. Next thing you want to do is if you want to export the image assets, all you need to do is check that button and then select the folder that you're going to be importing to. If you select the folder, all you need to do is create the folder and just set the link right there. If there are any images that you are exporting, you can export it in multiple types, including as a texture, as a sprite sheet, or image assets. In this case, I don't really need to export the image assets. Next thing we do is if we want to export sound assets or export Create.js assets, we can always do that. All we need to do is select the folders that we're exporting to. Because we're just exporting the image, we don't need to export any of these elements as well. Now, if we go further, we can click on HTML.js, and we can always select any of these buttons, overwrite HTML file on publish. If we're testing new versions, that's always helpful, so I keep that checked. And then if there are any advanced JavaScript options, you can select hosted libraries, compact shapes, multi-frame bounds. And I really don't mess with this too much. Now, image settings, you can select export image assets once again. In this case, once again, we have no need to export the image assets because we're not going to be exporting to anywhere else. And we've already got the Illustrator file that we created from as all the image assets. So if we ever need to export image assets, I'd just export straight from the Illustrator file. So let's go back to basic. And let's click on OK. This will save our published settings. We can test, and if it works, then we can go ahead and publish. So let's click on OK. And this time around, let's go ahead and do another animation test. Take a look at how it looks now. Note that our piece is now centered on the page horizontally and anchoring to the top vertically. It's exactly how we want it. Note how our animation is not taking up the entire page. However, when we start to scale our page, watch what happens. Note that when we scaled our page, our animation scaled down. Now, if we drag our page out, it will scale up until it reaches 900 pixels wide by 600 pixels tall, and then it will stop. That's exactly what we're looking for it to do. With that in mind, we're looking pretty good here. Let's close this window and let's go ahead and publish. Once again, we'll go to File. And this time around, we'll select Publish. Alt-Shift-12 is the key command. Note that the file published, but we received no other confirmation other than the output warnings. That's okay, because our file published to the specific directory that we requested. Let's go ahead and take a look at the directory that we created in Commerce Lane. Note as we open it, we've got animated test right there. Let's click in, and we've got all our files ready and waiting for us right there. There you go. With this step, we are done. The next step, we'll be talking about how to export our files to a physical web page. With that being said, we are done. Now that you've completed step 7, one more step to go. Let's do it. If you have any questions, comments, or critiques, leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, throw me a like. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, subscribe. I'd appreciate that just a little bit more. We'll see you next time. See ya.